Hello and welcome to Sim.B and the C. And today I'm just gonna start off by saying that Audible just picked it up, and it's amazing looking at, or rather listening to, the Book of Mythicality written by Rhett and Link from GMM. Go check them out from Good Mythical Morning. Best book I've ever had the pleasure of listening to, because it's the first one I'm listening to as well. Or the first proper one that I'm listening to in at least, 10 to 15 years? So, as long as I can remember, I haven't listened to a book that is as good as finding this one. And why am I saying Audible? Not because I want to sound like all the big channels who are actually sponsored by Audible, but just because, I think it's a rather good app, and I highly would recommend you to check it out, because usually, if you're like me, you like to be outside, you like to take for a walk, take a bit of a stroll, and it's all fine, it's all dandy, but sometimes it happens that you're just like, I'm just listening to music, right? I ain't walking with anyone, I'm just listening to music. I can't call anyone, because all the people that I want to call, they either work, or they study, or they do other stuff. They, generally have a life. Whilst I'm just, out taking a stroll in nature, which is all fine, all good, all dandy. I highly encourage you to actually go out and see the outside, the outskirts, so to say, of your apartment, because believe me, there are more stuff than you actually think, But, so I was rolling into this idea, I can actually start listening to books, because all of the books that I read is my course literature, makes up the latest 95% of the latest literature that I've read over the last 10 years is probably just different course books, because I am one of those people who actually open a course book and reads it from start to bloody finish. Probably a very fringe minority in me is in that sort of boat, but I thought, what is a way of me getting into new books, so to say? Me actually checking out new books, like the Book of Mythicality that I've wanted to look at and read for a while now. So I thought, why not just pick up Audible? So just a general tip, to all of you out there, you should totally go watch it out. Yet again, no sponsor from my side, right? You actually have to have more than 1,000 subscribers, or at least 1,000 subscribers, or at least it was that before the chance monetization policy as of in January. So that might have changed, but I think at least that you can't actually do paid promotional content until you have at least 1,000 subscribers, So from my side, undeniable. It's just something that, undeniably not sponsored content. It's just something that I would like to share, right? Go in and watch it out. It's good. It's backed by Amazon, so it's a good stuff, You know what you're getting. It's kind of quality. But that is not why you are here right now. Now is it? No, because we are here to talk about that. Evil. What is evil? And we're soon at the conclusion. We're soon at the point in time after 3 weeks where we actually can be at some form of conclusion over the course of this enormous project. And I'm like, what? I'm already there? That's crazy. That's intimidating. That's almost scary in a way that it's gone so long. And the video that I wanted to do for day 1, day 2 is all about the article that we're going to be covering today, which is about, and let me just move myself around because I can see that I can see me notes. So give me just a second. We're going to look at the concept of evil as released by Stanford University. At least I think it is that. So we're going to look at the entry, at least, of the psychology of evil. And bear in mind, I briefed it, recently, right now, before looking it through, before doing the video, but I actually read it 3 weeks ago. And since then, we have had different interpretations and different inputs, right? Of the different, have I said of enough? But of evil, what it can be, the different interpretations, different definitions, and so on and so forth. So my interpretation of it might have changed. So bear in mind, apply source critique here, that this is just my interpretation of the article, and the points that I think that I had back then probably still stands, but yet again, I might have been influenced, I might have forgotten, I might thinking that, that's totally published in there, whilst in all of honest reality, it's published in something over there. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. But the thing that I actually wanted to cover here, the thing that I thought was the most interesting one, was the idea of inconsequential evil. And not inconsequential as in there is no consequences. So that might not be the right term for it. I might have struggled that a bit, yeah. Might have gotten that a bit, tiny bit wrong. But what I'm trying to push here, yeah, is the idea that I am like certainly 90% sure that they were voicing in this article, yeah, about that evil necessarily, yeah, doesn't have to do with an act. And we've been talking about this before, as we were covering the psychology of evil. I thought it was called something along those lines as well, the psychology of evil at least. The TED Talk that we did a couple of days back was all about this idea of the 3 different paths, right? That I tried to combine with, ups and downs in your life. So we have been covering this, this approach to evil, that what you're doing is in some way impacting. But in this article, they were stating that, well, if you don't do anything, you technically just go along with what is happening around you. And some people are saying that that's evil. Yet again, we've been covering my take on that, yeah, in a previous video. And I probably came to the conclusion somewhere around like, yeah, no, not necessarily. I mean, if you're just a bystander of what is happening around you, you don't technically indulge in it, right? You don't technically motivate it. However, you don't technically, right, or not even technically, you actually strictly don't say something bad against it either. If you see something happening in the streets that is bad, that you think is evil, and you don't do anything about it, then you can kind of say that you're indulging the behavior and that you're saying, well, that's fine in my book because I ain't gonna step in that, into that situation. Why? Maybe it's because of it's none of my damn business, yeah? Or maybe because, well, I just couldn't be bothered, yeah? Couldn't really be asked. That is probably why I ain't gonna interfere. But they were taking it up in this article in such a way that they were saying that things that you can't actually affect, yeah, things that are a force of nature, for instance, are things that ain't evil. And probably many of you are going to agree with that statement that, yeah, things that, natural forces and so on and so forth, there are stuff that we can't do anything about, things that ain't evil. But I'm sure that you've heard a countless amount of times, right, that the statement, or along the lines of the statement that, a hurricane has been driving over a city and people were saying that the hurricane was evil, or in some way implying that was bad, which it probably was, right? It probably was bad, but was it evil though? Because when it gets down to it, this kind of definition was pointing towards the direction that natural forces and stuff like that, nothing that we really can't do anything about. It's nothing that is actively acting, and since it's not something that can act on behalf of someone else, it's not necessarily something that is evil just because it's exercising a force that is not in alignment with what we would consider to be good. So even though it's really bad, it's not something that is actually evil. So baseline, right, a force of nature can't be evil. And then we get into the psychology of it all, right? The psychology of people, that we are technically, right, the force of nature as well. We've been groomed by nature, we've evolved from nature, we're coming from nature, so we're really is the force of nature. And in some cases, right, the things that we do, it's just, when we're passively like bystanders in a situation of questionable context, right? Questionable behavior is happening around us and we ain't doing anything about it. Now, why is that? Well, they came up with some different motivators as up to why. For instance, a cultural motivator might be a reason why. These immeasurable and countless amounts of variables in society around us that actually affects us into such a way that we don't act. Does this necessarily mean that we're good or bad? No, it just means that we've grown up in a society where we have become this quote-unquote force of nature in and within itself. Not as an individual, we're not the force of nature as an individual, but we're a force of nature as a collective, right? So because something, let's say, let me set you in this stage here. Let me set up the context. Let me put you on stage. Let's say that there are 10 different people standing around waiting for the bus. Now, 2 of these people that are standing around waiting for the bus are getting into quite of a heated argument, right? Quite of a heated argument. One of them is pushing the other one. The other one is like, what were you doing? Yeah, trying to get the aspiration of everybody around you. Trying to involve people around to say like, hey, did you see that he pushed me? Did you see he pushed me? And then he pushed him back. And you as a bystander, you're just standing there looking at your watch here, and you're like looking up, and these 2 people are all of a sudden fighting. And you're standing there like, what's happening? You don't really understand what's happening. The people around you probably have a similar reaction, yeah? They're probably just like, wow, this is an inconvenience to life based on cultural caging, as we have been discussing previously, right? Based on how they were, living before, and which city they're from, which nation they're from, which religion they're, kind of adapted. Not that necessarily should be a real factor, because all of them are essentially the same when you get down to it, not the same that they're believing the same things, but that they're believing in the same kind of good things, right? That you should be a good person and so on and so forth. But basically, people have different backgrounds. That's what we're trying to getting at here. But they still have this cultural idea of where they are and where they're coming from. So the different culture they're coming from, maybe they try to adapt to a new one, or maybe this culture that they've adapted to or fully just grown up in is acting in a certain way when these types of behaviors arise. So you guys are standing there, or you girls for that matter, you people, you humans are standing there looking at these two people. So now you're 8 people. You're still a crowd. I would argue that you're still a crowd of people, at least for the case of the argument. You're a crowd of people looking at 2 people just pushing each other. Now, should you intervene based on the fact that exercising physical violence isn't a good thing? That's a bad thing, something that you might personally relate to be kind of evil. But just because you think so, just because you have established one side being right and the other side being wrong, if you're a judgmental person, I mean, do you really have the facts to judge 2 people just pushing each other at the bus station? Probably not. But that matters less. But you as a collective, are standing there. So it's not just you as an individual who is the problem right here, who is a pacifist in and within itself. It's you as a collective who are standing around being this force of nature, quote unquote force of nature. And why is this the case? Well, because all of you are just bystanders. You're all watching and nobody's actually breaking the mold. So that basically means that you're all just this passive force that ain't moving, ain't directing, ain't fixing it, ain't making it worse either, by the way, but you ain't fixing it either. Which is this idea of this inconsequential kind of evil that I was trying to get at. Now, yet again, if that's the right terminology or not, the inconsequential one, it's up for debate. Probably not, me in English, not my native language, so I might be wrong here. But what I mean with this what I'm trying to define with this term is that the pacifist view of not doing anything isn't technically evil. Which is the entire thing that I took away from this, right? That force of evil ain't something evil because it's nothing that we actually can change. This cultural behavior imprinted in our brains here, not something that we can change overnight, over a day, over a minute. When you see someone actually start to indulge in this kind of behavior that you deem to be would you deem to be questionable at best, if not really just an act of violence and a criminal offense, as it is. So that's what I'm trying to define here. But yet again, you guys are all, as a collective, a force of nature in this situation. So you're not technically evil, and you're not technically good or bad, or you're just impartial, to what is actually happening. Yet again, bystanders, just watching it all unfolds. Which I thought was kind of an interesting, or rather a really interesting take on what is evil. That people can't be evil as long as they're in a collective and they don't actually do anything. Whilst there are scholars on the other side of the spectrum, who are all like, you could. You're definitely evil if you just watch it, but that's for the review tomorrow, right? But just to establish that there are 2 very distinct views, especially when it comes to pacifists just watching something unfold. I mean, what do you believe? Leave your answers down in the comments. I'm really interested to know what you think about this, and especially after tomorrow's video, when we're going to, in a semi-structured, ain't gonna promise too much, manner, going to kind of decipher what we have been going through over the last, as I said, 1, 2, 3, 3.5 weeks? Something along those lines. We've been at this for a long time. So, gonna come at you with that tomorrow. But until then, have a nice one, mates. I'll see you tomorrow.